Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
And it's been a sad week in Australia. We lost Max Merritt, the great musician. We spoke a little bit about that before. But we also lost one of Australia's, and certainly one of Victoria's most popular and talented cricketers, Dean Jones, and we are absolutely thrilled to have former Australian Vice-Captain Ian Redpath, MBE. Thanks for joining us on Two Blokes Chatting. Sorry, Rob's not here to have a chat too.
It's a pleasure.
Well, I first ran into Dean Jones when he was 12, playing cricket for Ashwood when I was playing for Donvale. I suspect it was a little later in his life that you came across him.
Yes, he was. I think I played against him in the club game, and then he was when I was coach of the stage squad. He was in his second year, I think, in the stage squad, and I had a lot to do with that. It was a terrible tragedy.
It's a terrible tragedy at the best of times, but when someone who's 59 years of age and to the outsider looked remarkably fit, was a really good golfer, and I assume was still playing a lot of golf, just a major shock as much as anything.
Yes, it was, and as I said yesterday to someone, that famous saying, he died with his boots on. Well, Dino loved his cricket with a fantastic passion. He was. Whenever you saw him after in the later years, he couldn't wait to sit there and talk cricket. And he had a very good cricket brain, and he would have, and he loved the involvement of it all. And it was very sad. He was, he didn't have the involvement with Victorian cricket in the coaching department, I don't think, as much as he would have liked. He had a lot to give. And of course he's one of the best short form cricketers, I think, in the top two I think we've ever had. Yeah. Put him number one, actually. He was a real pioneer in the short form game.
And I think that's what made him different, wasn't it? And I say this with, lots and lots of respect. When you played one-day cricket, you played a few games one-day cricket, it was really just a shortened version of Test cricket, wasn't it? It was when Dino came along, I think, and started to revolutionise the game, and I don't think we're understating that, are we?
No, well, he and along with Bobby Simpson, I think I only played a couple of international one-day games and played them very badly.
Oh, you played a lot more than I did and a lot better than I did, let me tell you that for nothing.
60 you're in, in the team score, it was a good score. Yep. But, and then Dino and Simo came in and they sort of, they played a lot more, of course, and they studied the game a bit more. And tactically they were all over it, if you get 230, 250 was a good score, and now, of course, another 50 runs, 300 is a very good score. But, of course, I think the bats have made that difference, and I think Dino had been using the weaponry that they use today, he'd have been an absolute sensation. He was a very strong hitter as it was with the equipment he used then in those days, but a very good runner between the wickets. Yep. Very aggressive, and same with his batting, and that was his outlook on cricket. And even in the longer form of the game, he had a very aggressive mindset.
And I guess it's a little bit easier to think, of someone like a Wes Hall or a Dennis Lilly or a Jeff Thompson being aggressive because they've got that red thing in their hand, they're about to projectile at you at 150 kilometres an hour. As a batsman, a lot of it's about defence and making sure you've still got your head at the end of it. But I think lots of obviously more aggressive players than just Dean Jones, but he seemed to not have that fear. It was almost like a case of saying, and the obvious one with Curtly Ambrose, where he asked him to take his wristbands off. I mean, it's an old saying about poking a bear.
Yes. Well, it was not only that. I mean, you'd see him all of a sudden, he'd advance down the wicket to the fast bowlers and whack them back over their heads. That was more so his attitude. I think he did find the wristband a distraction because he had them both on both wrists. Yeah. But it was Yeah, pretty gutsy. They just had gutsy performance to poke the bear.
Yeah, because I don't think Kirtley's sense of humour was his strong point.
The next bloke in, they were crook on him. They really fired him up.
Yes, I can imagine.
But he's a likable character. He was different.
Yeah.
And but he wasn't he wasn't nasty. And as a coach, you could give him a rev up, and he'd come bounce back the next day as large as life. Never bore a grudge.
Yep.
And always glad to see you. No, he's a very nice fella.
He was a bit of a chip off the old block, as I understand it. I remember meeting Barney one day after I dismissed Dean at a game of cricket, and I was given some feedback by Barney. I got a sense that Barney was a bit cheeky and a bit aggressive in his cricket as well.
Yeah, he was a bit of a legend there in club cricket. Super competitive. Yep, and Dino was sort of idolised. You would have seen a lot of cricket. You probably would have seen Barney play a bit, but he was up front in his admiration for his dad and the influence he had on him.
Yeah.
And he was very good like that, He always appreciated people that helped him along the way. And, he was very good. Stacky was one of his mentors at Carlton, and he's never forgotten Stack's
absolutely.
His cricket.
Yeah. And I guess the innings that we must talk about, I mean, it wasn't his high score. His high score was 216, I think, in a game in Adelaide. But the 210 he made in India, and, it's easy to hear the legends and what Alan Border said to him and all that sort of stuff. You've played cricket in India, I assume. How tough is it in a place like that?
Hot. No, it suited Dino, really, because he was fit.
Yeah.
And but he was a very good player of spin bowling, and you probably see some of the snippets the way he played them when he got his 200 plus. He played them with a toothpick. He was very quick on his feet, so it suited him, and he was fit enough to. And they bowled a lot of spin at him. Well, they do it anyhow. Their attack was based around spin in India, and of course he used to love that, and so it suited him. It was a good effort, that.
Yeah, well, the reality of it was he ended up in hospital in serious condition, didn't he, with the dehydration that he suffered?
Yeah. But he loved it. He loved it. He loved being out there in the middle there at the MCG, and the crowd loved him, of course, and he used to feed off that. Something he used to love it, and he was proud of his performances, but that was Dino.
Yep.
And you probably heard stories about him, but he was, everyone accepted Dino, and he could laugh at himself too. That was one of his strengths, I think.
Yeah, and I think
Blokes would hang on him over his 200 in Madras, which he used to often refer to, but he'd laugh it off.
Yeah, and there's a conversation going on at the moment about the fact that now that he's passed, and I guess it's a reaction more so than people stopping and thinking. It's only been a couple of days. The talk about whether or not he should have a statue at the MCG. In terms of Victorian cricketers, I mean, Bill Lawry is sort of the poster boy for Victorian cricket, isn't he? In terms of his promotion of Victorian cricket. Where does Dino sit in that list in terms of Victorian cricketers of your time?
He would have got the publicity-wise. He was up there with them.
Yeah.
But he was a media dream.
Yep.
But there are other, folks like Lindsay Hassett. His record was absolutely unbelievable for Victoria.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, personally, I thought it was a bit of an overreaction, to be honest. I mean, I'm not saying that he's not been a great Victorian cricketer, but as you say, the Lindsay Hassets of the world and those guys that I guess are before the time of some of the journalists who are putting forward those stories, I guess that takes in some of it as well, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you could, if a young fella came along to you and said, "Look, Ian, I'm an 18-year-old cricketer, and I want to take one thing out of Dean Jones's game to put into my game," what would it be, do you reckon?
Positivity, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. Well, probably applies to the batsman and bowler. He reckoned that he was better than him. He could handle the bowling, whatever was thrown up to him, and he didn't change his game. He was always looking to be positive.
Yeah.
Didn't go into his shell. Yeah, I'd say that was probably the feature of his game. And as he got older, of course, he learned to harness that a lot better. And sadly, I thought that you might remember he sort of retired from Test cricket and proceeded to have the best 5 years of his for Victoria. He just couldn't stop making runs. He was fantastic.
Yeah.
And of course, the Australian side was very strong then. And of course, he couldn't get. They didn't. In his inimitable fashion, they've got my phone number if they need me. Yes. So he harnessed that. I thought in the latter years of his career, which I think it's borne out now that your best cricketers well into your late 20s and 30s. And he was impetuous early days, and he was fantastic some days. Other days it wouldn't happen for him. But down later on, he couldn't stop making runs. He was terrific.
My recollection was he played a few tests and then disappeared and then came back and played the bulk of them. Is that right?
Sorry, say that again.
My recollection is he played a few tests at the start and then fell out of the team and then came back and played most of them in a block. Is that right? That he sort of had a taste of it early?
Probably, yeah. I just can't remember myself. But I wouldn't. That'd be probably right.
Yeah.
And he went to England and was at the board of the team when they won about 5-love.
Yeah.
And he had a good series, and I think he was good. After that, he was very good.
Yeah. And he was captain of Victoria for a while.
He had his setbacks. As I said, he used to bounce back. He was captain for a year, I think, and anyway, lost the captaincy, and he's probably a bit prematurely. I think he was probably, he lost the captaincy after a year and down the track he was captain again in his last years, and he did a good job.
And he was a good leader?
Innovative.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think he was, he had a good cricket brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Ian, it's always a thrill to chat to you. This is the second time I've had a chat to you on the Two Blokes Chatting radio show, and certainly appreciate your time today in remembering one of the true greats of Victorian cricket and one of the certainly the childhood heroes of mine, having played a bit of junior cricket against him many years ago, followed his career with interest. I know you were certainly instrumental in his development as well, so most appreciative of your time on the radio this morning.
Thank you very much.
There he is. Thanks, Ian. That's
Bye.
Ian Redpath, MBE, and the former vice-captain of Australia. We might just take a moment to look at Dean Jones's statistics. He played 52 test matches for Australia and batted 89 times, 11 not outs, made 3,600 runs, highest score of 216, which was in a game against India, I think it was. Certainly at Adelaide, he batted for a very long time with Merv Hughes. They put on a really big partnership in that. His batting average was 46.5, and his strike rate in Test cricket was 48.5, which means less than one run every two balls. But in his one-day game, of course, he's very different. 1100s for Australia, 1450s. And what that shows, of course, is not only was he a pretty handy batsman getting past 50 in about 1 in 3 innings, but apart from that, when he made 1450s, he then 11 further times went on past 50 and made 100, which is a remarkable statistic when you think about it, because many players sort of fall in that 70s and 80s regularly, but he would go on and make hundreds almost as often as not. In the one day, he was really probably Australia's finest one-day cricket of his era, if not of all time. 164 games, he batted 161 times in that, 25 times not out, over 6,000 runs, a highest score of 145, which I think he made on the MCG. His average there was 44.6, which is a very, very good one-day average, and a strike rate of 72. Still quite low compared with some of the strike rates that you see now with the invention of T20 and the Glenn Maxwells of the world, but 72.6 in those days, as Ian was saying. Back when Ian was playing, if you made 160, it was a good score in 50 overs. These days, of course, twice that amount, so the strike rates are certainly high. Made 7 one-day centuries for Australia and made 46 50s, so certainly not as prolific in going on to make hundreds as he did in his Test career, but certainly in one-day cricket, you don't get that much of an opportunity. It is very sad to hear the news of Dean Jones, 59 years of age, passing away